So you think you know rifle cartridges? I don't think most of you do. Well, that's not true. A lot of you do know rifle cartridges. But do you know them as well as you think you do? I'm going to ask a question. What's the only cartridge to have, it's a one-off, and it has the sharpest shoulder angle? One cartridge. Pause the video, comment below what you think it is. I'll reveal it at the end of this video. But this is also another learning curve. So I'm trying to utilize, again, the idea of doing simple sketches to kind of teach the points of all the process that I went through to get to where I was. Learning from others that have done similar ideas, not copying exactly so I don't step on their toes, but learning how there's a difference. So I illustrated two. One, these are just general numbers, so don't worry about whether or not these are to scale. It is pretty common for a lot of bullets to have a more sleek style shoulder. Now you have straight wall cartridges like 4570, 450 Bushmaster, 44 Magnums. There's a lot of straight wall cartridge, and the only way to get pressure is to have a big heavy bullet up in the front. Whereas a bottleneck, like these are bottleneck cartridges, by creating a smaller opening at the top, and when that powder goes to burn, this bottleneck effect slows down the exit of the powders, therefore creating more pressure and more buildup inside the chamber, which is effective because it burns more powder inside of a shorter barrel, creates more pressure, and creates more velocity. And so a common shoulder angle for like the 30-06, 270, 25-06, 280 Remington is 17.5 degrees. And so you have these center lines that I drew because number one, that is the center of the case. Is the shoulder angle is measured off the center of the case. It's not shoulder angle to shoulder angle. So sometimes you'll see some companies put that and they'll go, oh yeah, we have a 40-degree shoulder, and then you measure from center, it's only a 20-degree shoulder. It's not impressive. It's nothing fancy, but they'll try to pass it off as if they have a 40-degree shoulder. They don't. So that's not true. It's based upon the center of the case. So that right here on this one, I used 30 degrees on this one. That's the common shoulder angle for things like the 6.5 Creedmoor, 6mm Creedmoor, and the PRCs all use a 30-degree shoulder. Also, so do the Remington Ultra Mag line. So they also utilize a 30-degree shoulder. And it's a good all-around shoulder. It feeds in and out pretty well. There's not much of an issue with, again, the feeding. But it also builds pretty good pressure. But it doesn't build the most pressure. And so it's not as efficient as some other cartridges. That said, it's not that it's bad. It just isn't as efficient. This, while I'm utilizing a 45 degree in literal angle, is closer to what you'd see when it comes to something like a 280 Ackley Improved, which utilizes a 40-degree shoulder. So that's going to create more pressure. But there's another thing. If you look at them, which one of these two has a taller powder reservoir? Yeah, it's that one. That one has more volume. So even though these have identical amounts of material, it takes the same amount of material to make this case as it does to make this case. But because you simply reshape it, you end up gaining a considerably more volume. So you can fit more powder in this, which helps when it comes to achieving things like velocity. So that's something to consider when you're engineering. And so that's part of my process, is going through what was called the SAAMI catalog, SAAMI. And they are an organization that basically standardizes how rifle cartridges and rifles should operate. And there's a good reason why they exist. It keeps us safe. And that's legitimately the reason. We want, again, going back to the previous video, you want to have fun, be safe, utilize the rifle as it is, but you don't want to also turn it into a hand grenade. So they go through and they measure things to make sure that it's operating as advertised and that it's actually safe to operate. So that way, if it goes to market, people aren't hurting themselves or getting themselves killed. So before somebody goes, oh, they're just trying to regulate everything. No, first off, stay out of the politics of it. I'm not interested in that. But they are there so that way we have safe operations of firearms so that way we all can enjoy the day and go home. That's the entire point. But either way, they go through and they list specs. So you can go through and you can find the specs for whatever cartridge that you're either shooting or looking to obtain. And it'll list all the data there for the cartridge, the chamber, the max operating pressures. And as a quick side caveat, I'll note is I did get a good correction from a friend of mine. It's not PSI. Cartridges are not measured in PSI. They're measured in what's called CUP or CUP, copper unit pressures. And I knew that before, but I kind of forgot it because all day long, what I do for work, I am around pounds per square inch. So they're different. They're measured different. They don't really cross over. I'll get into that in another video. But just to clarify, whenever you look through a reloading manual, you're not going to see PSI. You're going to see CUP. So that's something to remember. And I'll break it down more. I'll explain that at another time. But the reason for the difference mainly has to do with powder volume and also efficiency. You know, you think about this shoulder angle when you're going across it. Think of it as, again, going back to like a road type illustration. If you're going 70 miles an hour, which one is more comfortable to go around? A long sweeping curve or a hard 90-degree turn? So if your propellant is trying to get shoved out the barrel and you have a harsher shoulder angle, it's going to slow down the ejection of the powder. So more powder is burned inside of a shorter distance. That allows you to get greater burn efficiency out of a shorter length of barrel. So you don't need necessarily a 24 or 26 inch barrel to have as much efficiency. You can achieve better efficiency and better velocities out of that shorter barrel, which is a key point when you're thinking about things like hunting. If you're just target shooting, it doesn't really matter how long the barrel is because typically you're going to be at a bench or you're going to be laying prone or whatever the case is. So you're basically going to drive up to the range. You're going to be in your truck or whatever vehicle you have. You're going to get out. You're going to set up the rifle and you're just basically going to be there all day. It doesn't matter if the gun weighs 25 pounds. It's irrelevant. But if you're hunting up in the mountains where you're up and down or you're just in some wide open terrain in the plains like the Midwest, where you could be walking miles of flat land, then that weight starts adding up. So you want to be conscious of whatever you're working on, whether or not you're going to be designing a cartridge for yourself or going to be building a rifle around an existing cartridge. You want to be cognizant of your burn rate so you can build the best rifle possible. Because again, going back to it, it is possible that if you have too long of a barrel, your velocities can be hurt. Because once you've run out of propellant, there's nothing pushing that bullet. That means that barrel is now slowing your bullet down. So you want to do your homework and then pick a barrel length accordingly. You can have like a 26 or 27 inch barrel with something like a 223 or even a 308. But the fact is, a 308 runs out of its propellant at about 24 inches of barrel. Once you go past that, you really have no gain. You actually start losing velocity. Savage did that where they had their Model 12. It's a really good rifle, but it had a 30-inch barrel, target barrel. It was ridiculously accurate. But if you chop that same barrel down to like 24 to 26 inches, you actually gained velocity while keeping your accuracy. So it ended up being a detriment to that rifle or to that shooter, I should say, by having that long of a barrel. So there is a pro and a con. You have to build according to when you want your propellant to finish burning as the bullet is exiting the barrel. That's the idea. Because then you're at max velocities and you're at max efficiency. And so with that being the case, you have flatter trajectories, therefore making long-range target shooting or hunting a lot easier. So you want to balance it out. So, you ready for the final reveal? What's the one cartridge with the hardest shoulder angle? It's not the 280 Ackley Improved. I know a lot of you are probably going to say that. It's not. It has a 40-degree shoulder angle. That's what the 280 Ackley Improved is. The harshest shoulder angle goes to the 416 Rigby with a 45-degree angle. So if you ever have anybody say to you that you can't have a rifle feed in a bolt action with more than a 40-degree angle, go to the SAAMI catalog and you pull up and you'll see that the 416 Rigby has specs of a 45-degree shoulder. There you go. There's some extra education and a little bit of trivia for your gun guys. All right, please like, subscribe, share, comment. Tell us what cartridge you like and why. And if you learn something, please tell me that too, because I'm trying to make this where we can all have a good time learning. I like to learn, but I also don't like to do it in a boring manner. So, again, please like, subscribe, share. Please keep following us. We're trying to make this thing grow. All right, we'll talk to you later.